Commander Han Ji-woo stood on the observation deck of Gateway Station Alpha, staring at the void of space beyond Earth's border. His reflection in the reinforced glass showed a tired man in his mid-40s, wearing the dark blue uniform of the Outer Perimeter Defense. Behind him, holographic displays flickered with data streams and patrol routes. Everything had been quiet for months, which should have made him happy. Instead, it made him nervous. The year was 2847, and humanity had finally reached beyond their home system. 12 colonies now orbited distant stars, filled with farms, factories, and families building new lives. Earth remained the center of everything, protected by the Perimeter Defense Network. It was a line in space that marked where human territory began. Simple, clear, and visible to anyone with basic scanning equipment. Dr. Kim Nari entered the observation deck, holding a data tablet against her chest. She was younger than Jiwoo, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. As the chief xenolinguist, she had studied every alien language humanity had encountered. There were not many. Humans were still newcomers to the galaxy. "Commander, we have a situation," she said quietly. Giwoo turned from the window. "What kind of situation?" "First contact." "A big one." She handed him the tablet. "They call themselves the Vrex Dominion. Their fleet just appeared at the edge of our sensor range. 300 ships, all military class?" Guo felt his stomach tighten. 300 warships. Humanity's entire defense force had maybe 80 ships total, spread across all 12 colonies. He studied the data, watching the approaching fleet move in perfect formation. They were not trying to hide. They wanted to be seen. "Have they made contact?" he asked. "Yes. They sent a message in standard galactic common." I translated it. Nari's face was grim. "They are not here to talk, Commander. They are here to take." Within the hour, Captain Lee Minho arrived at the station aboard his battlecruiser, the Resolute. He was a broad-shouldered man with a reputation for staying calm under pressure. His ship was one of Earth's finest, equipped with the latest weapons and shields. Still, one battlecruiser against 300 seemed like a bad joke. The three of them gathered in the command center, where the Vrex message played on the main screen. The alien who appeared was massive, easily 8 feet tall, covered in thick gray scales. His eyes were yellow and cold. He spoke in a deep, rumbling voice that the computer translated into English.
"Attention, humans
of the primitive systems. I am Warlord Krekthis of the Vrex Dominion. Your species occupies space that belongs to the Dominion by right of conquest. You will surrender 5 of your colony worlds immediately. You will swear loyalty to the Dominion. You will provide tribute in resources and labor. Refuse, and we will take everything. You have 12 hours to comply," the message ended. Silence filled the command center. "They think we are weak," Minho said flatly. "They see us as easy prey." Shh. Wu nodded. "They have been conquering other species for a long time. Hundreds of years, maybe more. To them, we are just another target." "What are our orders from Earth?" Nari asked. "President Kong sent them an hour ago," Jiwoo replied. He pulled up the official response on his screen. "We are authorized to deliver the warning. Earth will not negotiate. Earth will not surrender. We draw the line here." Minho stood straighter. "Then we draw it." They spent the next 6 hours preparing. Giwoo activated every warning beacon along the perimeter line. Each beacon was a small satellite that broadcasted on all frequencies impossible to miss. The message was simple and clear. Dr. Nari had written it herself, making sure there could be no confusion in translation. "This is the boundary of human territory. You have been warned. Cross the perimeter line and face the consequence. We will not warn you again." The message repeated in 47 different languages, including Vrex. Every ship in the approaching fleet would hear it. There would be no excuse, no misunderstanding. When the 12 hours passed, Warlord Krekthis responded. His image appeared on the screen again, and this time he was laughing. The sound was harsh and mocking. "Humans think they can threaten the Vrex Dominion. You have no idea what real power looks like. Your warning means nothing. Your weapons mean nothing. We have crushed 1,000 species stronger than you. Today, you learn your place in the galaxy." The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the Vrex fleet began moving forward. 300 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had built, crossed the perimeter line without hesitation. They were heading straight for Haven, the agricultural colony that fed millions of people across human space. Jiwoo watched them come. His hands were steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. "All stations, this is Commander Han Jiwoo. The Vrex have crossed the line. They ignored our warning. As of this moment, we are at war." Around him, officers moved to their positions. Weapon systems powered up. Shield generators hummed to life. Captain Minho's voice came through the comm system from the Resolute. "Gateway Station, this is Captain Lee. My battle group is in position. We are ready." "Hold position, Captain," Jiwoo ordered. "Let them come deeper. Let them think they have already won." On the screen, the Vrex fleet advanced. They moved in a tight formation, confident and unafraid. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since they first reached the stars. Every worst-case scenario had been planned for. Every terrible possibility had been considered. Earth had built a defense network that looked simple on the surface. A few stations, some patrol ships, warning beacons, nothing impressive. Nothing that would scare an empire like the Verks, but humanity had learned something important in their short time among the stars. The best weapon was the one your enemy did not know about. The best defense was the one they did not see coming. Jiwoo took a deep breath and opened the fleet-wide channel. "All units, stand by. Weapons free in 60 seconds. Show them what happens when you ignore a human warning." The countdown began. The Vrex fleet moved through space like a swarm of metal predators. Warlord Krektis stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive human territory spread out before him. His officers worked at their stations with efficient precision. Everything was going exactly as planned. "Status report," Krektis commanded. "No resistance detected, Warlord," his tactical officer replied. "The humans have retreated. We are detecting only automated warning beacons." Krektis laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Cowards. They hide behind recorded messages while we take their worlds." He turned to address his crew. "This is why the Vrex rule the galaxy. Other species lack the courage to fight." The warning beacons continued their broadcast as the fleet pushed deeper into human space. The same message, over and over, in dozens of languages. Some of the younger Vrex officers found it amusing. A few even mocked the human voice coming through their speakers far below the command deck. In the operations room of Gateway Station Alpha, Commander Han Jiwoo watched the Vrex fleet reach the halfway point to Haven Colony. His hand hovered over a single red button on his console. "Kala units report ready." Lieutenant Yoon Hana's voice came through his earpiece. She was out there in space, leading a fighter squadron from the Resolute. Her voice was calm, professional, ready. "Admiral Park sends her confirmation. Commander," another officer reported. "All defense network nodes are armed and waiting for your signal." Jiwoo looked at the tactical display one more time. The Vrex fleet was spread out now, confident enough to break their tight formation. They thought the battle was already over. They thought wrong. He pressed the button. Space itself seemed to shift. The Vrex had been scanning for ships, for weapons, for obvious threats. They had not been scanning for what humanity had actually built. Thousands of small quantum-entangled minds, invisible to conventional sensors, activated in perfect synchronization. They had been floating in the void for months, waiting for this exact moment. The first wave of explosions tore through the Vrex fleet. 40 ships disappeared in blooms of white fire. Shields that should have protected them failed against weapons that appeared from nowhere. The Vrex formation collapsed into chaos. "What is happening?" Krektis roared. "Where are those weapons coming from?" His tactical officer scrambled to analyze the data. "Unknown, Warlord. The mines were undetectable until activation. They are using quantum entanglement to bypass our shields." Before Krektis could respond, the second wave hit. Kinetic kill satellites hidden among the debris and asteroids of the system opened fire. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speed, slammed into Vrex cruisers. The impacts created such force that entire ships broke apart like toys. Then the human ships appeared. Captain Lee Min-ho had been waiting in stealth position for this moment. The Resolute and her battle group decloaked right in the middle of the Vrex fleet. They were smaller ships, faster ships, and they moved like hunters. All weapons, fire at will, Min-ho ordered. The human ships struck hard and fast. Their railguns punched through Vrex armor with precision. Their missiles flew in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. They did not stay in one place long enough to become easy targets. Hit and run, strike and fade. These were tactics humanity had perfected during the colony wars. When they fought each other before uniting, Lieutenant Yoon Hana led her fighter wing through the chaos like a blade through silk. Her squad of 12 fighters attacked a Vrex corvette, their weapons synchronized. The corvette's shields held for 3 seconds before collapsing. Railgun fire from the fighters tore it apart from 6 different angles at once. Striker 2, break left. Hannah shouted into her come. She pulled her fighter into a turn that should have been impossible, the G-forces pushing her hard into her seat. A Vrex plasma bolt passed through the space where she had been a moment before. Thanks, Lead, her wingman replied. These guys are tough, but they are slow. Hannah smiled inside her helmet. Slow was right. Vrex ships were built like fortresses, but fortresses could not catch ghosts. Human fighters were smaller, lighter, and twice as fast. They flew in ways that seemed insane, but every pilot had trained for years in simulators that pushed the limits of human endurance. On the flagship, Warlord Krektis watched his fleet die around him. 70 ships lost in the first minute. 90 ships after 2 minutes. The humans were everywhere, attacking from angles that should not exist, using weapons that his shields could not stop. Turn fire, he commanded. Concentrate all weapons on their largest ship. The Vrex fleet obeyed, turning their massive guns toward the Resolute. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles converged on Captain Min-ho's ship, but the Resolute was already moving. Her engines flared bright blue as she accelerated into a corkscrew pattern. Most of the enemy fire missed completely. The shots that did hit slammed into shields that had been designed specifically for this kind of punishment. Engineer Choi Dae-ho had spent 3 years developing the shield technology. He had studied every known alien weapon system and built defenses that could take the hit. Shields at 60%, the Resolute's tactical officer reported. Maintain evasive pattern, Min-ho ordered calmly. Target their command ships. Take out their coordination. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was brutal, fast, and devastating. The Vrex had more ships, but humanity had better tactics. They had prepared for this fight while the Vrex had expected an easy conquest. Every human captain knew their role. Every fighter pilot had practiced their maneuvers 1,000 times. Every mine had been placed with careful planning. When it finally ended, the Vrex fleet was running. 112 ships destroyed. Another 80 damaged so badly they could barely move. The survivors fled back toward their own territory, leaving their dead behind. On Gateway Station Alpha, Commander Han Ji-woo watched them go. His station was damaged but intact. His people were exhausted but alive. They had held the line. Should we pursue? An officer asked. No, Ji-woo said firmly. We gave them a warning. We showed them the consequence. That is enough for now. Captain Min-ho's face appeared on the comm screen. His uniform was torn, and there was a cut above his eye, but he was smiling. Gateway Station, this is Resolute. Mission accomplished. The line held. Confirmed, Captain Ji-woo replied. Well done. All ships returned to defensive positions. Lieutenant Yoon Hana brought her fighter wing back to the Resolute's hangar bay. 3 of her 12 pilots had not made it back. She felt the weight of their loss, but she also felt pride. They had faced an enemy with overwhelming numbers and sent them running. Far away. In the depths of space, the damaged Vrex flagship limped toward home. Warlord Krektis sat in his command chair, staring at the casualty reports. Over 100 ships lost. Thousands of warriors dead. defeated by a species he had considered primitive. "Send a message to the Dominion Council," he said quietly. "Tell them we need reinforcements." Many reinforcements. His officers exchanged nervous glances. No one wanted to be the one to admit what had just happened. Finally, the communications officer spoke. "What should we tell them about the humans, Warlord?" Krekthis looked at the empty space where his fleet had been. "Tell them the humans were not lying. Tell them the warning was real." President Kong Jisoo stood in the war room deep beneath the surface of Earth, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human colony and military asset. The news from Gateway Station Alpha had arrived 3 hours ago. They had won the first battle, but everyone in the room knew it was only the beginning. "Intelligence confirms the Vreks are gathering a larger fleet," Admiral Park Soo-min reported. She was a veteran commander with gray hair and sharp eyes. "Our agent in Vrek space sent this message yesterday." A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a young man in civilian clothes, his face partially hidden by shadows. This was Intelligence Officer Shin-Huk, who had been operating undercover in Vrek's territory for 2 years. His voice was steady despite the danger he faced. "The Dominion Council is furious about their losses. They are authorizing a full invasion force. 2,000 warships. They plan to crush humanity completely and make an example of Earth. You have maybe 3 weeks before they arrive." The hologram faded. Silence filled the war room. 2,000 ships. Even with all of humanity's tricks and tactics, those numbers were overwhelming. "Can we win against that many?" President Kang asked quietly. Admiral Park looked at the displays, calculating possibilities. "Not with conventional warfare. We hurt them badly in the first fight, but 2,000 ships is 20 times what we faced. They will learn from their mistakes. They will be ready for our tactics. Then we need something they cannot be ready for." A new voice said. Everyone turned to see Dr. Beek Sora entering the war room. She was a brilliant quantum physicist, maybe 40 years old, with tired eyes and hands that trembled slightly. She carried a sealed case marked with warning symbols. "Project Reckoning," she said simply. "We swore we would only use it if our entire species faced extinction. I believe that time has come." President Kang had heard whispers about Project Reckoning, but never the full details. It was classified above even her security level. "What exactly is it?" Dr. Beek opened the case, revealing data chips and technical specifications. Controlled antimatter reactions channeled through quantum tunneling. It creates localized spatial distortions. In simple terms, we can tear holes in space itself. Any ship caught in the effect gets ripped apart at the molecular level. "How many can it affect?" Admiral Park asked. "With the generators we have built, we could create a distortion field covering approximately 1 million cubic kilometers. Everything in that space dies." Dr. Beek's voice was flat, emotionless. "We built 12 generators. We could use them all at once, or spread them across different battles." President Kong closed her eyes for a moment. This was the kind of weapon that kept her awake at night, the kind of power that made species into monsters. But the alternative was watching Earth burn while humanity scattered to the stars as refugees. "Do it," she said. "Prepare Project Reckoning. But I want every colony evacuated first. Every civilian in bunkers. If the Vreks want to take our worlds, they will find empty cities and armed fortresses." The next 2 weeks were chaos. Millions of colonists moved underground into emergency shelters that had been built for exactly this purpose. Food, water, and supplies for months. Children cried as they were taken from their homes. Parents tried to stay calm while fear ate at them. Governor Osunwu of Haven Colony worked around the clock to coordinate the evacuation. He was an older man, a former military officer who had retired to farm life. Now he was back in uniform, making sure every single person reached safety. "Last transport is away," his assistant reported. "The colony is empty." Sunwoo looked at the screens, showing his empty streets and silent farms. 3 years of hard work, abandoned. But the people were safe. That was what mattered. Above Haven, in orbit, Captain Lee Minho prepared his battle group. The Resolute had been repaired and upgraded. Engineer Choi Daeho had added new weapons, stronger shields, and backup systems for everything critical. Every asteroid in the system had been rigged with antimatter drives. Every orbital station had been turned into a weapon platform.
Long-ranged.
Sir, long-range sensors are picking up the Vrex fleet, the tactical officer reported. Confirmed 2,000 ships. They will reach Mars orbit in 6 hours. Minho nodded slowly. Mars, they were coming straight for Earth itself, bypassing the colonies. The Vrex wanted to cut the head off the snake. They would learn that humanity's head had very sharp teeth. Admiral Park. Su Min activated the Titan protocol from her command center on the moon, all across human space. Military units moved into position. Defensive platforms powered up. Hidden weapons revealed themselves. Every single asset humanity possessed was committed to this fight. All ships, she broadcast on the fleet channel. This is Admiral Park. The Vrex are coming to destroy our home. They ignored our warning. They laughed at our resolve. Now we show them what humanity truly is. We do not surrender. We do not break. We fight for every meter of space, for every world, for every life. Hold the line. The Vrex fleet arrived at Mars orbit like a storm of metal and fire. Warlord Krekthis had died in the first battle, but his replacement was even more ruthless. Fleet Commander Vrethik studied the tactical displays with cold calculation. He had learned from the previous defeat. His fleet maintained tight formation. His shields were configured against quantum weapons. He had triple redundancy on all systems. Begin bombardment of Mars, he ordered. Destroy their orbital platforms, then move to Earth. His ships opened fire. Massive plasma weapons lit up the darkness of space. Mars's defensive platforms returned fire with railguns and missiles. Ships died on both sides, but the Vrex kept coming. They had the numbers. They could absorb losses that would cripple humanity. Then the asteroids started moving. Engineer Choi Daeho had spent months placing antimatter drives on carefully selected rocks. Small asteroids, big enough to do damage but small enough to accelerate to incredible speeds. They came from all directions, moving at relativistic velocities. When they hit Vrex ships, the impacts released energy like small nuclear weapons. 70 Vrex ships disappeared in the first minute. The fleet formation broke apart trying to avoid the asteroid storm. That was when Dr. Beak activated the first spatial distortion generator. Space itself twisted and warped around 300 Vrex ships. The effect lasted only 10 seconds, but 10 seconds was enough. When the distortion cleared, there was nothing left but expanding clouds of atoms where warships had been. Fleet Commander Vrithix stared at his displays in horror. What weapon is that? How do we defend against it? No one had an answer. The human scientists had created something new, something terrible. The Vrex had conquered hundreds of species, but none of them had ever done this. The battle raged for 6 hours. Mars orbital platforms fired until their barrels melted. Human ships danced through the Vrex fleet. Striking and fading, Dr. Beak activated 3 more spatial distortion generators, each one erasing hundreds of enemy ships. The asteroids kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. On Gateway Station Alpha, Commander Han Ji-woo watched the battle unfold from his command center. His station was too far away to participate directly, but he had his own role to play. The Vrex flagship was trying to push through toward Earth, protected by a screen of escort ships. All hands, this is Commander Ji-woo, he broadcast station-wide. Prepare for emergency evacuation. We are going to ram the flagship. His officers stared at him in shock. Sir, we will not survive that. I know, Gi-woo said calmly, but neither will they. Get everyone to the escape pods. You have 5 minutes. Gateway Station Alpha was massive, built from a hollowed-out asteroid. It weighed millions of tons. Gi-woo engaged the main engines, pushing the station out of its orbital position. It accelerated slowly at first, then faster, toward the Vrex flagship. The Vrex saw it coming, but could not react fast enough. Their weapons' fire tore into the station, ripping through armor and modules, but momentum kept it moving. 4 million tons of metal and rock slammed into the flagship at 200 kilometers per second. Both exploded in a flash of light visible from Earth. When the battle finally ended, humanity counted the cost. 1,300 Vex ships destroyed. The survivors fled in complete disorder. But the victory came with a price. Gateway Station Alpha was gone. Commander Han Juwu was gone. 300 human ships had been lost. Thousands of crew members would never go home. President Kong Jisoo watched the casualty reports scroll past her screen. Tears ran down her face, but she did not look away. These people had died defending Earth. They deserved to be remembered. The remaining VREX ships scattered across the galaxy like leaves in a storm. They carried stories of impossible weapons and a species that refused to die. On every world they passed, and every station they refueled at, the survivors spoke in hushed tones about what they had witnessed. Captain Ru Gunho tracked them in his stealth reconnaissance ship, the Shadow. His vessel was small, fast, and nearly invisible to sensors. For 2 weeks he followed the fleeing VREX deep into their territory, gathering intelligence on their empire. What he found shocked him. The VREX dominion was vast, controlling hundreds of star systems. But it was not unified. It was a patchwork of conquered species held together by fear and military force. The VREX themselves were a minority, ruling over dozens of other alien races. These subject species built their ships, grew their food, and fought their wars, are why you recorded everything, and sent encrypted reports back to Earth. The Dominion is weaker than we thought, he transmitted. Their power comes from intimidation, not loyalty. If we can show other species that the VREX can be beaten, the whole empire might collapse. His words reached Ambassador Song Minji as she prepared for the most important moment of her career. The Galactic Council had summoned her to their neutral meeting station. The Council was an ancient organization, a loose federation of spacefaring species that maintained peace through diplomacy rather than force. They had been watching the conflict between humanity and the VREX with great interest. Song Minji was a career diplomat, skilled in negotiation and careful with her words. She had spent years studying galactic politics, preparing for the day when humanity would take its place among the stars. She had not expected that day to come in the middle of a war. The council chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats for representatives from 40 different species. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that Song needed computer assistance just to understand their body language. All of them stared at her as she entered. The council speaker, an ancient being called a Thelern, gestured for her to approach the center platform. His skin was blue and covered in patterns that shifted like water. His voice came through a translation device. Ambassador Song Minji of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your species' actions against the VREX Dominion. The Council has received complaints that humanity used excessive force and deployed weapons of unprecedented destruction. How do you respond? Song took a breath and activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. Honored Council members, I respond with evidence. The first hologram showed the VREX ultimatum. Warlord Krekthus, demanding surrender, threatening to take everything. The council members watched in silence. The second hologram showed humanity's warning. The clear message broadcast from every beacon along the perimeter line. You have been warned. Cross the perimeter line and face the consequence. We will not warn you again. The third hologram showed the VREX fleet crossing that line without hesitation. Laughing at the warning, advancing with overwhelming force toward human colonies filled with civilians. We gave them a chance, Song said firmly. We told them exactly what would happen if they crossed into our territory. They chose to ignore us. What happened next was their choice, not ours. A council member from the Korath species, insect-like beings with multiple legs, clicked their mandibles. But your weapons. The spatial distortion technology. You destroyed hundreds of ships in seconds. Such power is dangerous. You're right, Song agreed. It is dangerous. That is why we built it as a last resort. That is why we gave a clear warning first. We are not aggressors. We are defenders. Everything we did was in response to an invasion of our home. Another council member spoke, this one from a species called the Velm. The Vrex have troubled many of us for generations. They expand constantly, taking what they want through force. But none of us have successfully resisted them before. How did you do it? Song smiled slightly. We prepared. Humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. When we reached the stars, we knew we would eventually meet species stronger than us. We built defenses accordingly. We also made sure everyone knew where our boundaries were. The perimeter line is not a secret. It is clearly marked. Anyone approaching it receives multiple warnings. The council speaker's patterns shifted to a color Song's computer, identified as thoughtful consideration. There is another matter. After the battle, your forces did not pursue the fleeing Vrex. You could have destroyed their entire fleet. Why did you stop? Because our goal is not genocide, Song replied. Our goal is security. We want to live in peace. But we will defend ourselves without mercy when attacked. The Vrex learned that lesson. We hope others learn it without needing a demonstration. For 3 hours, the council questioned her about every detail of the conflict. Song answered each question honestly, showing documentation, tactical recordings, and casualty reports. She did not hide the terrible weapons humanity had used. She did not apologize for the Vrex deaths. She simply presented the facts. Finally, the council speaker raised one appendage for silence. The council will deliberate. You may wait outside. Song left the chamber and found Dr. Kim Nari, waiting in the hallway. The xenolinguist had been translating everything, making sure there were no misunderstandings. How do you think it went? Nari asked. I do not know, Song admitted. But I spoke the truth. That has to count for something. They did not have to wait long. After only 30 minutes, the council summoned Song back inside. The speaker's patterns had changed to a color her computer could not identify. Ambassador Song, the council has reached a decision. We find that humanity acted within acceptable boundaries of self-defense. Your warning was clear. Your response was proportional to the threat you faced. We commend your restraint in not pursuing total destruction of your enemy. Song felt relief wash over her, but the speaker was not finished. Furthermore, 3 species have approached us with requests. The Kelver, the Drin, and the Pollen have all been threatened by Vrex expansion. They wish to establish defensive alliances with Earth. The Council supports these requests. This was more than Song had hoped for. 3 new allies, species that understood the value of standing together against aggression. Earth welcomes friendship with all peaceful species, she said formally. Over the next weeks, the consequences of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy like ripples in water. Captain Rujonho continued sending reports from Vrex space. The Dominion was fracturing. Species that had been conquered decades ago saw Earth's victory and found courage. Rebellions broke out on a dozen worlds. Vassal species refused to crew Vrex warships. The empire that had seemed invincible was coming apart. On Haven Colony, Governor Osunwu welcomed the first non-human refugees to human space. They were Kelver, a species with fur-covered faces and gentle eyes. They had fled Vrex retaliation after their homeworld declared independence. You are safe here, Sunwu told them through a translator. Humanity protects its friends. The Kelver leader bowed in gratitude. We heard the story of your warning, how you gave the Vrex a choice. We hope to learn such courage from you, but not everyone was celebrating. In the depths of Vrex space, in a secret military facility, the Dominion High Command gathered. They had lost 2 fleets. They had lost dozens of vassal worlds. They had lost their reputation as an unstoppable force. Fleet Commander Vrethix stood before the High Council, his body bearing scars from the battle at Mars. The humans are stronger than we anticipated. Their weapons are too advanced. I recommend we negotiate peace. The head of the High Council, Grand Warlord Thexus, struck Vrethix across the face. The Vrex do not beg for peace. We are the masters of this galaxy. Then what do you suggest? Vrethix asked, blood dripping from his mouth. Thexus smiled coldly. If we cannot defeat their fleets, we destroy their home. Construction has begun on the Annihilator. When it is complete, we will ignite their sun. Let them warn an empty system. Deep in that secret facility, thousands of enslaved aliens worked on the doomsday weapon. They worked in silence, knowing that failure meant death. But among them walked a Vrex scientist named Zhang Yuna, and she had a plan that would change everything. 6 months after the battle at Mars, Zhang Yuna stood at the edge of an airlock in a stolen Vrex shuttle. Her hands shook as she initiated the final sequence. Behind her lay everything she had ever known. Ahead lay uncertainty and possible death. But she could not stay silent any longer. The shuttle crossed into human space, broadcasting a message on all frequencies. "This is Vrex scientist Zhang Yuna. I carry urgent information about a weapon that threatens Earth. I am requesting asylum and audience with human leadership. Please respond." Within hours, she was aboard the Resolute, sitting across from Captain Lee Minho. The captain studied her carefully. She was smaller than most Vrex, with lighter scales and eyes that held genuine fear. "Why should we trust you?" Minho asked bluntly. "Because I have spent 2 years watching my people build something terrible," Yuna replied through the translation device. "The Annihilator. It is a station designed to ignite stars into supernovas. They plan to destroy your sun, Sol itself. When it is complete, Earth will have 3 days warning before your entire system dies." Minho felt ice in his stomach. "When will it be complete?" 1 month. Maybe less. Yuna pulled out data chips containing everything she had stolen. "I am a weapons scientist. I know the Annihilator's design. I know its weaknesses. But you need to act fast." President Kang Jisoo called an emergency session with her top military commanders. Fleet Admiral M. Tai-young came out of retirement for this meeting. He was nearly 70, a veteran of humanity's worst conflicts, and the only person Kang trusted to lead what came next. "We need to destroy this station before it becomes operational," Tai-young said, studying Yuna's data. "But it is deep in Vrex territory, surrounded by 500 warships. They learned from our tactics. They are expecting us." "Then we need to do something unexpected," said Colonel Anguian. She commanded Earth's elite marine forces, soldiers trained for the most dangerous operations. "We cannot outfight 500 ships, but maybe we do not need to. Maybe we just need to get inside." Dr. Kim Nari had been working with Zhang Yuna, learning everything about the Annihilator station. According to Yuna, thousands of slaves from conquered species built it. They are still there, forced to work on final systems. If we can reach them, they might help us. President Kang looked at each person in the room. "You are talking about humanity's first offensive operation beyond our borders. We have always defended. This would be different." Fleet Admiral Tai-young nodded. "Yes, Madam President. But the Vrex crossed our line first. They ignored our warning. Now they are building a weapon to destroy our home. We gave them every chance for peace. This is the final consequence they earned." Kang closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of all the lives this decision would affect. Then she opened them with resolve. "Operation Final Warning is authorized. Bring our people home, Admiral. And make sure the Vrex never threaten Earth again." 3 weeks later, a strike force of 50 ships assembled in secret. These were humanity's fastest vessels, equipped with the latest quantum stealth technology. Captain Minho commanded from the Resolute. Lieutenant Yunhana led the fighter squadrons. Colonel Anguian prepared her Marines for what might be a one-way mission. Zhang Yuna traveled with them, providing intelligence and navigation through Vrex space. "The Annihilator is in the Crest system," she explained to the assembled commanders. 500 ships guard it, but they rotate patrols every 12 hours. During the shift change, there is a 90-second window where sensor coverage overlaps poorly. That is when you strike. The fleet moved through Vrex territory like ghosts. Quantum stealth made them nearly invisible, appearing as sensor glitches and background radiation. They passed patrol fleets and monitoring stations without detection. After 5 days of silent running, they reached the Crest system. The Annihilator station hung in space like a malevolent moon. It was massive, easily 20 kilometers across, covered in weapon batteries and shield generators. Around it, 500 Vrex warships maintained constant patrol. That thing could really destroy a star? Lieutenant Yoon Hannah asked quietly. Yes, Dr. Kim Nari confirmed. She had studied the technical data exhaustively. It generates a focused beam of exotic particles. When fired at a star's core, it destabilizes the fusion reactions. The star goes supernova within 72 hours. Minho pulled up a tactical display. We use the Resolute as a decoy. My ship draws their attention while Colonel On's Marines infiltrate the station. We hit them hard, make them think it is a full assault, then break off before they can coordinate a response. Your ship will not survive that, Taeyang said flatly. No, sir. But it gives the Marines their chance. That is what matters. Colonel Angyan and her team of 200 Marines prepared for insertion. They wore powered armor, designed for shipboarding actions. Their weapons were optimized for close combat in zero gravity. Each Marine knew the odds. Most of them would not come home. Listen up on addressed her troops. We are going into the worst situation possible. Overwhelming enemy forces, hostile environment, mission-critical target, but we are Marines. This is what we do. We go where others cannot. We do what others will not. Earth is counting on us. Let us show these Vrex what humans are made of. The assault began during the shift change, exactly as planned. The Resolute and 30 ships decloaked right in the middle of the Vrex fleet. They opened fire with everything they had, creating chaos and confusion. Alarms blared across 500 enemy ships. Commanders scrambled to respond. While the Vrex focused on the human warships, 3 stealth transports slipped through the chaos. They attached to the Annihilator's hull and cut through the outer armor. Colonel An led the first wave inside. They found themselves in massive corridors filled with alien workers. These were not Vrex. These were Kelver, Drin, Pollen, and dozens of other species that humanity had never met. All of them wore slave collars. All of them looked at the human Marines with wide eyes. Dr. Nari's voice came through Anne's helmet. Come, I am broadcasting a message to them now, telling them we are here to help. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a Kelver worker stepped forward and pointed down the corridor. He spoke in his own language, which Nari quickly translated. He says the reactor core is that way. He can show you, but the Vrex guards are coming. I made a split-second decision. Free them. Cut those collars off. Anyone who wants to fight with us, give them a weapon. Her Marines moved through the station like a storm, breaking slave collars and arming prisoners. The Annihilator turned into chaos, as thousands of enslaved aliens realized they had a chance at freedom. They attacked their Vrex guards with tools, with their bare hands. With fury built up over years of captivity, outside the station, the battle raged. The Resolute was taking devastating damage. Captain Minho's ship was burning, shields failing, hull breached in a dozen places. But they kept fighting, drawing more enemy ships away from the station. Sir, we need to evacuate, his tactical officer urged. Not yet, Minho replied calmly. The Marines need more time. Lieutenant Yoon Hannah's fighter squadron flew through hell itself, dodging fire from Vrex ships while taking shots at anything that got too close to the Marine transports. She had lost half her squadron. Her own fighter was flying on backup systems, but she kept going. Inside the Annihilator, Colonel An reached the reactor core. It was a massive chamber filled with equipment she barely understood. Jang Yuna's voice guided her through the cum. You need to overload the containment fields. That will cause a cascade failure. How long until it explodes? An asked. 10 minutes. Maybe 12? An looked at her Marines. 23 had made it this far? Set the charges. Then get everyone off this station. Slaves first, Marines last. Move. The evacuation was desperate and chaotic. Freed slaves poured into the transports. Marines held defensive positions. Fighting Vrex security forces who tried to stop them, Dr. Nari coordinated with the freed aliens, organizing them, keeping them calm, on the Resolute. Captain Minho received the evacuation signal. All ships break off. Get clear of the blast radius. But his ship could not move fast enough. Too much damage, engines failing. He looked at his crew, seeing their fear and their determination. Everyone to the escape pods. That is an order. Sir, You need to come with us, his tactical officer insisted. Minho shook his head. Someone needs to pilot the ship to cover your escape. I will buy you the time you need. Now go. His crew evacuated reluctantly, leaving him alone on the bridge. Minho took manual control and pushed the Resolute forward, straight toward the Vrex command carrier. His weapons were nearly empty, his shields were gone. But momentum was still a weapon. The Resolute slammed into the command carrier at full speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball that lit up the system. 20 more Vrex ships were caught in the blast. 10 minutes later, the Annihilator exploded. The station tore itself apart in a chain reaction that created a miniature sun for 3 seconds. The explosion consumed everything within 10 light seconds. 400 Vrex warships disappeared in the blast. The surviving Vrex fleet fled in complete disorder. Fleet Admiral Taiyong ordered the rescue ships to pick up everyone they could find. Marines, freed slaves, the Resolute's crew pods. They worked for hours, pulling survivors from space.